The US has been a nation built on innovation and creativity since its founding. You have presidents who understood the value of IP. A song recorded in Lagos could be streamed in Seoul within minutes. A film made in Nairobi can find audiences around the world. New technologies are opening doors that previous generations of artists could scarcely have imagined. But the challenges that creators face are also daunting, from piracy and fair remuneration to managing rights in an increasingly digital world and ensuring that artificial intelligence serves and empowers rather than diminishes or sidelines the human creator. And this is why copyright matters. Strong copyright ecosystems and effective collective management help creators earn a living and sustain vibrant creative industries. And this is especially important not just in America, not just in other parts of the world, but also in Africa, where we find that music revenues are growing by around 15% each year, amongst the fastest growth rates anywhere in the world, and where the creative economy is increasingly a source of jobs, opportunity, and pride.
So I learned how to play gospel music at the foot of my grandmother, my maternal grandmother. And what you hear today, what you see today in me as an artist, it started at a very young age. And it's years and years of playing, trying things, failing, succeeding, shows not going well, shows going well. All that experience has added up to the artist I am today at 47 years old. And I'm grateful for that journey. And as we think about AI, we think about the possibilities, as we think about the future, part of me is nostalgic for that ability to fail, the ability to try things, the ability to not have all the shortcuts just at your fingertips, but to actually have friction and difficulty in creating and coming up with new ideas. And I hope that we find a way, even with all these amazing tools at our disposal, to still encourage people to have friction in their lives as creative people, to try things and fail, to have happy accidents as creative people. And so whenever I think about the use of AI in our work, I think it can be really useful. I think it can be a really useful tool for creative people, a useful kind of partner in the creative process. But I also want to encourage my fellow artists out there to allow yourself to fail and learn and try things and to experience friction in your lives, because that's going to make you a better creative person. And you're going to make art that's more special, more personal, more authentic, and ultimately more powerful.
So in today's global marketplace, rights holders really need to have strong and consistent laws that protect IP across borders. And they have to have confidence in the frameworks that support those laws. And from our perspective, that really boils down to two key things: up-to-date laws and the political will to actually support the frameworks that are involved with those laws. And we're working with governments across the region to modernize national laws and to ratify and implement international treaties to help with that consistent approach across the board. And, you know, because the creative industry there is just bursting with talent and potential, it's really important that we are careful about the way we modernize our laws, that we're thoughtful about it. You know, for instance, with respect to exceptions and limitations, that's something that is so important. But if you have exceptions that are too broad, it can end up harming local creatives, it can create confusion, and it can ultimately, you know, dampen interest in foreign and domestic investment. You know, piracy presents a really grave threat to the creative industry worldwide, and yet many people still think that it's a victimless crime.
Over the last 2 years, there's been a concerted effort at the federal government level to push through an interministerial approach for the IP framework, which is really important, because what that now means is that, and that's now happened at the Federal Executive Council, which is at the cabinet, and now it's coming down into all the arms of government and eventually into the banks, which is the most important thing. So what this really means is that creators and creatives and authors and startups will be able to use IP for collateral, which has never happened in our markets. So it's a very, very important piece. Our CMOs are not efficient in Nigeria. It's been a problem for a long time. And I think that once we have that singular issue sorted, I think that there's a big report just came out. I think it says $270 million uncollected in Nigeria. That's just in 1 year. Yeah. And I think Nigeria is probably a market that's probably 5-6 times that size.
So we work very closely with the likes of John Legend and copyright owners, songwriters, composers on the continent. Our particular business is obviously focused on publishing, which means that as any business, you need transparency, you need consistency, you need return on investment. You've mentioned briefly a little bit about collective management organizations and the role that collective management organizations play in making an ecosystem that is healthy and that is growing. So as an example, the IFPI released a report on sub-Saharan Africa, and there was a 15% growth in sub-Saharan Africa. I think it's the second fastest growing market in the world. And 87% of that is just South Africa. So if you could think about all of the other countries on the continent where we have undercollected, there's revenue leakage, what could that revenue be utilized in doing? Solving youth unemployment, creating opportunities in the film and TV and fashion industry. There's such a huge multiplier effect.
Well, I think we've talked a bit about what it means to protect copyrights, combat piracy, protect artists' rights. And now we're moving into an era with AI that allows the technology to do all sorts of things with our material, our recorded material that already exists out in the world. And it could be informing a lot of these AI models. And so the question is, will artists be protected and compensated for the use of their intellectual material in informing these powerful new models? And so I think that's the urgent question right now as we think about what this new technology enables us to do. Will it empower artists? Will it be a great tool for artists? Or will it try to replace artists and put them out of business? And so I think we all have a responsibility to ensure that the lifeblood of creativity isn't crushed, isn't sucked out of our communities. And so let's make sure that with all this technology, we're protecting artists' rights. We're making sure that if any of our intellectual property is used, that we're compensated for it and we're given consent over whether or not we want to opt in to that situation or not. And I think those are important aspects of how we deal with the new frontier, because I think the piracy question has been around since I was making records and way before that. There's been a lot of questions that we still haven't figured out all the way, but we also have this massive, 500-pound gorilla in the room of AI that's trying to suck up all of our creativity, and we need to make sure that we still have artists left that are getting compensated for their work so that they can continue to create the music that means so much to all of us.
And the creative economy is a real economy. Yes. It's a real business. It's not vocation. They're not amateurs. And the thing they're doing is deadly serious, especially to the individual artist at every time. Because yes, a lot of times people talk about the big numbers, but the guy who has no numbers is just as passionate about his craft. Mm-hmm. And it goes way beyond music as well. But then, I represent Afrobeats, right? And, the thing about it is music travels with no visa, and it takes a lot of stuff with it. Mm-hmm. So our music has taken the culture, it's taken the dance, it's taken the energy, it's taken the attitude of a country where the average age is 18 and there are 250 million people, and they're never going to stop coming. I mean, I was talking to the chairman of, well, not the chairman, but one of the big Universal men, and he was saying 75,000 AI songs a day, which is crazy. In Nigeria, we have Nigerians, real people loading 5,000 to 10,000 songs a day. It's not AI. And that, to me, is crazy. So I'm kind of like, the volume is great, but we still got to get to the quality. But the most important thing for the public sector to understand is that this sector will drive so much. I was so happy when he said that the IP industries of America drive 41% of that economy. I think every country in the world needs to pay attention to that, especially mine, because we have IP forever, not just music.
I'm really excited to announce that in August, in partnership with Universal Music Group, we'll be hosting 2 workshops, one in Lagos and one in Johannesburg, with creatives, entrepreneurs, and local officials to dig deeper into these questions. And then we'll be bringing back 2 representatives from those workshops to the U.S. Missions event during the SCCR here, so that all the delegates here can continue to hear from the ground what's going on, to make sure that we're keeping that circle of communication going. So.